Okay, Director Daniels,
I'm here.
Vice President LaHue,
Not here, I guess.
I'm here.
Wow.
thank you. Director Jaffe,
I'm in front of my screen and here.
Director Christensen,
Here.
and President Lather.
Here. So, do we have any requests to speak from the public regarding closed session?
No, we did not receive any requests to speak for the entire meeting.
Okay, so we can go to closed session and return after closed session
Okay.
at 7:40.
Sounds good.
Great.
Bye.
Bye. Knock it off.
Hey, Becca, can you hear me? Okay. Just want to make sure I have sound.
Sorry, I had to find my unmute button. I'm on 3 screens and it's like cuckoo. Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Because yeah, the other day, all of a sudden, like my microphone wasn't working on Teams, so I have no idea why. And then it started working again.
I know
Just
how that.
sure.
That's the wrong. Let me. What time are they coming back?
I don't know. I'm confused. So many different.
I forgot to change my PDF. Oops. All right.
Let me look, and I can tell you.
It's 7:40. I just looked it up.
Okay.
I just gotta edit my
There's
PDF.
a break though. Like the meeting actually starts at 7:50. Another 10-minute break.
Oh, is there? Okay. Thank you.
Closed session 7:10 to 7:40, and then agenda 7:50.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Where is my Zoom controls?
I know my mouse just is crazy sometimes with Zoom. I don't know why. All right.
Oh my gosh.
It's okay, Pete.
Mhm. So. Mhm.
Don't quite have everybody yet.
I think we're missing one or two.
I think Rochelle.
Yeah, maybe Carlos. Oh, Carlos here.
I was crashed out of it, so maybe that's what happened to Rochelle too.
Hello, I'm back. Is everybody here now?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, I
think
was
we're ready.
worried. I was gonna start to say, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so
Please don't.
we're on the consent agenda. Let me see. Oh, board members' opportunity to remove items from consent agenda.
President Luther, I apologize to interrupt, but just reporting out of closed session.
Oh, yeah.
No action.
Sorry, thank you. I ran back down. So now we're on to any board members interested in pulling any items on the consent agenda. Please let me know.
I don't want to pull anything, but I have a couple of comments.
Okay. Go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, on the management update, it talks about a LAFCO annexation and sphere of influence amendment, and I'd like to hear more about that. And finally, I noticed about the disposal of surplus items. We're getting rid of a lot of office furniture. I was wondering if those could be used in the trailer we're trying to outfit.
So should we
Right.
just pull those items or?
Well, that'd be the management report. We can comment on them if you like, and then if you need to pull them, maybe we should try that. Does that sound good?
Good for me.
Okay. In 5
Um,
words or less.
Turn the volume. Sorry.
Regarding the desk, I'll just say we're getting rid of them for a reason, and it doesn't make sense that we don't want them and we'd move them out to where somebody else, one of our own colleagues would have to use them. We're replacing the old desk, wooden desk, with used but good condition sit-down, stand-up desk, which we think really helps the employees' well-being. So a win. So that's the reasoning behind that. Taj, do you want to tackle the spear? Or you want me to jump on it?
I could even tackle it if you want.
Oh, okay.
This is about the question about the person that wants water down in La Selva, right?
It is. That's correct. We were approached by a person down in La Selva, but it's turned into something a little bit larger than that, or a little more.
It makes more
comprehensive.
sense. Yeah. Go ahead. We discussed it at our board meet or
Right.
LAFCO hearing.
Right. So in a nutshell, because it's not an item, there's areas down in La Selva where in the old days, we could provide them water but not annex them in, I think is the proper term. And when we approached LAFCO, they said, you really need to clean this whole thing up. And they're suggesting a slightly different plan. And that's what would be before you, to be more contiguous and reflect more of our service area and not a hopscotch pattern.
Well, part of the thing is that they were considered extraterritorial service and they don't like that anymore,
Exactly.
the existing ones.
Thank you. That's just what I wanted.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else? Does someone want to make a motion to approve?
I make the motion, we approve all the consent items.
I'll second.
Roll call. Director Daniels,
Yes, please.
Vice President LaHue,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Christensen,
I missed it.
Director Christensen.
Yes.
Thank you. And President Lather.
Yes.
So did you not hear me?
I heard you.
I didn't,
second-
but it
the
could have been a
second time.
glitch.
Oh, okay. I guess
First time, no.
it didn't show that I wasn't muted or anything. I was just curious.
I've been having some glitchy internet, so if you don't hear me, let me know. Okay, so now we've moved on to oral and written communications. Are there any items?
I have a couple of things.
Okay. Anybody else?
Have one thing.
Okay.
And I'll just-
So,
and I'll mention one thing also.
okay, so let's start with Director Daniels.
Okay, the two things are EPA, I think it's next week, is putting on a seminar about stormwater capture and both the recharge of it as well as the water quality issues of it. It's a free thing and it goes for about an hour, I think. So it seemed like it was reasonable. I'm signed up for it. And I gave the information to Ron. So if anyone else wants that, you can contact Ron about that. There was another thing that I saw.
Could you share that, Ron, please?
Yeah, because I tried to sign up and I had a hard time doing it.
Sure, I'll send it out to the entire board. I've shared with some staff already. Thank you.
Okay.
The other thing I saw was that Las Vegas is in the process of declaring some grass not used, or I forget what the other term they had. And they intend, in their case, they're going to pass an ordinance, they're trying to pass an ordinance to declare that that grass has to go away. And I thought for us, it might be of interest because when we get pure water done, we may no longer have any justification for the second tier, which was based on, using that for pure water. So if we want another justification for a second tier, because if we've only had one tier, then there's no big incentive for conservation. I think we'd like to have a second tier for that conservation signal. A second thing would be to say that anyone who's got this grass that's just, as they say, not used for anything except you don't even walk on it except to mow it. And so anyone who has that would pay a slightly higher price than the other people would. That would be a justification for a second tier.
Okay, Director Jaffe. You're on mute.
No, I'm not.
Okay, great. Can you start again?
So that can't be seen. Anyway, San Francisco Chronicle today had a front page article about limits on water ahead from Marin. And they're expected to adopt a plan at tonight's meeting that would require nearly 200,000 residents of Southern and Central Marin County to limit outdoor watering to 1 day a week, as well as to stop washing their cars, refilling their swimming pools, and power washing their homes, among other things, with fines of up to $250 if they were to disregard those new policies. Anyway, so, and they talk about it being the worst drought in 90 years, and that their reservoirs are 57% full, which at this time of year is the worst it's been in 40 years. So I'm sure glad we have a supplemental water supply project underway, because I think we're going to see we're going to see restrictions around the state.
Thank you for sharing that. I'll have to look that up. So let's see. I'm just following my list. So Director Christensen, you're next.
Okay, I think you can hear me. I just wanted to quickly say I've been still pursuing the water reuse conference due to my own technical inabilities. I had a hard time getting into their live round tables, but the technical sessions have been really good, and I'm still plowing through them. And I just wanted to highly recommend that as many of us as possible should keep on participating, because they were discussing every year that I've ever attended, it's been discussing technical issues that we need to be aware of, that the board members, I think. And one of those things that came up just yesterday, or Sunday, it was Sunday probably, was the Los Angeles County, the Water Management District. I think we attended there as a tour, but they have set up a whole lab to look at the effect of the RO discharge on marine life, because they're doing the same thing that we intend to do, which is we'll have RO filters in our Pure Water Soquel project. We'll put the brine back into the sewage system, and it will go out into the ocean. So they are doing a lot of research now to verify what additional effect that might have on marine life, in terms of trapped pathogens that are going out there and things like that. And I just hadn't really considered about it, but the other thing about it that unnerved me, and I don't know whether we will be subject to this kind of an issue, is they have a very strong, very long verification or testing process just for that. And I don't know whether we are required to do that or not. So it was just one of those little talks that I thought, well, someone might already have the answer, and I don't. For sure.
Carla, do you know if theirs is being mixed with a large amount of discharge otherwise, diluted out with the rest of the secondary effluent?
They just studied it directly. They actually tested them on actual standard test organisms for chronic and acute toxicity, environmental toxicity. And they figured from the dilution factor that they were going to be okay, but they were just more concerned about chronic effects, because it would be a continual thing. And they're a species that they were studying which is recommended by the EPA, is required by the EPA, was the red abalone. And so, of course, we all know that the abalone populations up and down the coast are already endangered at the moment. And so I was thinking, oh God, it's probably worth exploring, but unfortunately, since I saw this too late, I could not, I'm gonna have to contact those people independently and ask them for more information on their research.
Well, the strength of their sewage is probably different than ours.
Well, it's a much more volume involved, right? Exactly.
Not just the volume, but the strength, because they have industrial clients as well as residential.
But they were talking about stuff in secondary treated sewage. Is what
Right.
it looked like to me, the stuff that they
But the sewage, the
nitrates, cryptosporidia, different pathogens, giardia, things like that. They were looking at treated sewage, I think.
again, those are also things that you have to deal with in treated water. So,
Yeah.
okay, well, thank you.
Well, also, one thing is, as the drought, it gets more extreme and our water volumes and our water use decreases, then a number of, and I think we're already seeing that ourselves, are higher incidence of nitrates and some of these problem treatment chemicals. And so they're especially interested in the effects of that concentrate back into the brine, back into the sewage stream. So I think it's worth staying up to date on that one a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. I mean, I have some other ones if anybody wants to talk about it, but I have some other ones, but I'll just limit it to that one for now.
Tom, did you have anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, and I mean, the only item that I would have talked about, we already talked about, which was the annexation and sphere of influence study that will be done by LAFCO. I'm not sure when that's coming. Do you know, Ron, is that in like September or something?
Well, no, probably we'll bring it. I think Taj is heading up at either the next meeting or the one after the initial start of it.
Oh, because we have to apply. And
yeah,
then they
start
do
the
the
process.
work. Yeah, then they do the work. So we're gonna LAFCO. Okay. And then LAFCO will do their thing and we'll see it in the fall probably.
Yes, and the next step will be, we'll bring it to the board here, either the next meeting or the one after probably.
Okay, so now we can move on to reports. District Council, you have an oral report?
Yes, I do. Thank you, President Lather. Good evening, board. Just an update related to COVID. So you probably all saw the governor's announcement that we're shooting for a reopening of the economy by June. That started us to pay a little bit more closer attention to what's been going on at the legislature related to potential changes to the Brown Act. So the board will remember that the reason we're allowed to have these sort of virtual only type meetings without including the location of, all the directors are attending from on the agenda is related to the governor's emergency order right at the beginning of the pandemic, which suspends certain portions of the Brown Act as long as social distancing is recommended. The legislature is starting to look at whether, I think largely, given the success of this meeting format, whether permanent changes to the Brown Act along those lines make sense. And there are at least 3 bills currently pending that would modify the Brown Act on this issue. And they sort of range from one end of the spectrum, which would allow local agencies to meet remote in this sort of remote only format in any locally declared emergency. So it wouldn't be for any reason or at any time, but only any local or state emergency. The other end of the spectrum is a bill that would actually require local agencies to have an internet option at all meetings to allow members of the public to attend remotely if they wish going forward. That bill actually also previously included a requirement to provide live translation services, which, while we certainly want to do whatever we can to increase access to meetings in non-English speaking communities, would have dramatic cost impacts on local agencies. But that was recently amended to remove that portion of the bill. And then the third bill out there is sort of the Goldilocks right in the middle, and it would allow local agencies to have remote auction, but not require them. So it would essentially take the governor's current executive order and put it into law going forward. We'll continue to monitor these bills as the legislative cycle progresses. They're all currently at the local government committee with the assembly, but I would expect one or more will move forward through the process, and we'll see what the legislature would like to do. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do you know what the timing is like, and the thoughts on how long we would, under current law, be continuing with Zoom versus in-person meetings?
We don't, just given the flexibility that's in the executive order, it, you know, as noted, it as long as social distancing is recommended. And I think, you know, given what's going on with vaccination rates on one hand, but also with some of the variants on the other, I don't think, you know, it'll be anytime soon where we would be mandated to go back to in-person meetings.
Yeah, I noticed that I guess a California water reuse conference they're having in the fall, they were going to be meeting and safely social distancing. So I think some of things are starting to change a little bit, especially regarding the fall.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Director Christensen. The League of California Cities is targeting an in-person conference in some format for the fall. I haven't heard what Aqua's going to do yet, but I think you're right. I think we'll probably start seeing that.
So is that?
Did I miss something? My
We're on
internet
to the
kind of
next
died.
thing.
No,
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
all. Yeah, that was
Sorry
all I
about
had
that.
for report. Thank you.
I have sketchy internet connection today. So we're on to item 7, and we have no conditional and unconditional will serve, so we'll move to 7.2.
That'll be me. Good evening,
Contingency plan.
members of the public. I'm Shelley Flock, the Conservation Customer Service Field Manager, and I'm presenting on item 7.2. We also have our Urban Water Management Plan consultant, Spencer Waterman, with Water Systems Consulting on the call tonight, and he'll be available to answer any questions that you might have. The purpose of the item is to get board input and direction on these 2 sections of the Urban Water Management Plan. Next slide, please. Okay, before I get started, I want to thank everybody, the board, Water Systems Consulting, district staff, and legal counsel for all the work that all the various parties are putting in on the urban plan and your expertise and input. And as you can see here on this slide, there's numerous sections to the urban plan, and really having a successful plan that meets not only the regulatory requirements, but also is useful to the district in the future is, it's really critical that we get everybody's input. So thanks again for everyone's participation on this. The approach that we've taken with the past urban plans, and this one as well, is to bring you the core, or really the most critical sections in advance of bringing you a final draft, to get your feedback and really ensure that we're all on the same track. And as you know, we brought you the demand projections earlier this year. And so now we're shifting focus to supply and really the reliability and water shortage contingency planning. So next slide, please. Starting with section 7, water supply reliability and drought risk assessment. That has 2 components, a supply reliability assessment and a new required drought risk assessment. That's the DWR, Department of Water Resources, is asking for. In the reliability assessment, we're looking at 4 factors: climatic, environmental, water quality, and legal, that could potentially limit the expected quantity of water available from our current and projected water sources of supply now and through the 20-year planning horizon. And this assessment's done under several scenarios. We look at normal year, single dry year, and 5 consecutive dry years. On the other hand, the drought risk assessment, which is a new requirement, is an analysis of historical drought, and that's forecasted into the future under various drought conditions and with a focus on a 5-year consecutive drought scenario. So in that, we take a look at our next 5 years and our projected demand, and we plug that into this drought risk assessment tool that the DWR has developed and come up with that assessment. So moving on to the next slide, please. Really the key takeaways in section 7. And I don't think there's any surprises here. Our future groundwater supply reliability is impacted by climate change, environmental, seawater intrusion, and water quality factors. And really the one that we're, most concerned with and that we're taking action to mitigate and solve is the groundwater overdraft and seawater intrusion factor. Supply reliability assessment and the drought risk assessment that were performed, because we're a groundwater supplier, we don't have some of the same shortage concerns that surface water suppliers have. And we're able to meet those demands in drought scenarios now and into the future, or projected to. Our concern is really solving our overdraft problem. So that pretty much concludes it for section 7. I'm going to skip now to section 8, water shortage contingency planning. And this is a standalone document within our urban water management plan. And the purpose of it is really to conserve our available water supply and protect the integrity of the supply with priority and regard to domestic water use, sanitation, and fire protection. So those essential uses, and really protecting and preserving public health, welfare, and safety in times of water supply shortages. And it's really critical to have good planning when you have to go into contingency situations. So the next slide. Next slide addresses the types of shortages that are in our plan that we cover. We have short-term shortages, which are due to generally emergency situations, earthquakes, fires, that sort of thing, or production-related issues and limitations that impact our ability to produce the amount of water that we need. Those generally pass in, a week or two is how we view those. Long-term shortages, and these are more due to prolonged drought, contamination, destruction of critical supply facilities that last longer than a supply shortage or a short-term shortage. And then lastly, the one that I think is, most applicable to us is shortages due to undesirable results for seawater intrusion. And really what we're looking at there is our groundwater elevation proxies, our chloride concentrations, and whether we're triggering exceedances of those. Next slide, please. This gives you a feel for what the primary components of the water shortage contingency plan are. So we have an annual water supply and demand assessment procedure. There's 6 shortage stages ranging from 5 to greater than 50%, and triggers associated with those. So we have the reduction in production capacity, we have our rainfall trigger, and we have our new groundwater-based trigger. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Within those stages, you have various shortage response actions that apply to both the district and our customers that we need to do those actions so that we can meet those curtailment targets in the various stages. There's communication protocols with other local agencies, so that other cities and the county of Santa Cruz will know what our particular situation is, what we're asking people to do. Legal authority, compliance, and enforcement is a big part of this. You have to have some sort of ability to enforce your actions and requirements to get people to follow them, especially in the upper stages where you're not relying so much on educational approaches. You may need to take penalties and that sort of thing. Financial consequences of the plan implementation. So when you go into these shortages, you are obviously seeing a decline in revenue that matches your curtailment. And so how are you going to keep your ship afloat while you are experiencing these shortages? So you do an evaluation to basically make sure that you can weather the shortages. And we talk in the plan about how we do that. One of the ways is the option for the board to implement emergency rates. Monitoring and reporting. This is kind of a new requirement where we are supposed to look at our plan every year and determine, especially when we're in curtailment, determine what was effective and what wasn't, and make adjustments and refine those procedures moving forward. And then the last part is how the plan has to be adopted and submitted and made available to the public. So moving on to the next slide, please. The big changes to the plan this year, the first 3 bullets there are internal district changes. And so we'll just run through those real quick. Addition of groundwater-based trigger condition, which we brought to the board last month, I believe. And that is really kind of honing in and tying our evaluation of conditions in the basin to what's being done in the groundwater sustainability plan for the Santa Cruz Mid-County Basin. There's a new baseline of 3,800 acre feet per year that you use when you're applying your shortage stage reductions. And that's in contrast to the current plan, which has been using a 2013 production year as our baseline, and that was the pre-drought year. So we're moving away from that and more towards kind of an unconstrained demand. If you remember from the demand projections, that was the new strategy or the new requirement that DWR is asking for us to pursue. There's also a few relatively minor changes to the district operating actions and customer demand reduction actions in some of the shortage stages. And then lastly, the new DWR requirements, the addition of the water savings estimates in each shortage stage. They want you to take a look at the actions that you're calling for, either for the district to do or for our customers to do, and try and determine whether those actions will add up to the desired or targeted curtailment reduction. And it's a little bit tricky to do that because there's not a lot of data out there on some of these measures and actions that we've taken and other utilities are taking, or they're in ranges. That was a little bit of a challenge in this current plan, but I think what we have found is that our measures do meet those targets. There's also an addition of a 6th shortage stage for a greater than 50% curtailment. Our current plan, stage 5, went to 50%, so this is an additional one on top of that. And then lastly, there's a requirement for a new annual water supply and demand assessment procedure that we would need to go through every year after we go to the board with the information that you need to determine whether to declare a shortage. What that shortage is, then we're required by July 1st of every year, starting in 2022, to make that report to the State Department of Water Resources. Next slide, please. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch on the timeline. So we have section 7 and 8 tonight. We're planning on bringing you a complete draft urban water management plan and holding a public hearing at the May 18th meeting. And then bringing that back with any changes that you have asked for at the June 1st or June 15th meeting, and then meeting the DWR submittal deadline of July 1st. So we'll also, as part of that, or once that plan is adopted and the water shortage contingency plan is formally adopted as part of that process, we'll also ask the board to make that shortage stage declaration. So it's a little bit later than it has been in past years, but we are currently in a stage 3. We've been in a stage 3 since 2014. So I don't, I'm not sure that we're going to come out of a stage 3. It's looking like, based on rainfall, that we're just barely in a stage 2, a few inches less rainfall, and we would have went into a stage 3 for our rainfall criteria. And then for our groundwater condition criteria, it basically says that we stay in a stage 3. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Do you want to run through each person in
I
order?
could do that. It seems like that works better, huh? Okay, Director Daniels, do you have
Nothing for me,
anything?
Thank you.
Vice President LaHue?
Just a couple. On part 7 on page 51 of 91 on the agenda. Let's see, under basically the second paragraph up from the bottom and the next to last sentence there, it says that 2,300 acre feet per year net average groundwater pumping volume was established before more advanced modeling was completed as part of the GSP, which indicated that net average pumping could be slightly higher. Was there a number attached to that, or did Cameron and company just say it could be a little higher than that based on our current modeling?
Yeah, I think what he said was it could go up to 3,900, and maybe Ron can chime in.
I mean the 2,300 without supplemental.
Yeah, I mean it's a net, it's an average. So if you go over, 1 year by a small amount, you're under other years, it all sorts out. He didn't actually, I don't think, list a number.
Okay. It just says net average could be slightly higher, but I hadn't heard that before, so I just wondered if anybody knew.
I'll find out and get back to you.
Did you find that in there?
Pardon?
Did
It
we
was
ever?
just a comment that made me think about, whether that had been modified or not, and I don't remember that being modified. I thought we were still working on the 2,300 number. So that was all.
Is there anything else, Tom?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so Director Jaffe.
I'm unmuted. So I'm going to keep the comments high level. There's talk about in the first document. Let's go to page 48. And it talks about how the SCMC, so Santa Cruz Mid-County Basin, currently provides 100% of Soquel Creek's water district's water supply. We're doing a pilot program for water transfers with Santa Cruz. So how can we have 100% of our water supply just from groundwater?
So I think that's a good question. And Shelley, can I jump in?
Yep.
I think the word that's missing there is the reliable part. Usually when we make this sense, because it is such a small fraction, the river water, but reliably provides 100% of our supply.
Okay.
It also says currently, and currently, last year we didn't get any.
Yeah, it depends on when you're reading the document, I guess. Or when
This year coming up.
this year. Yeah, not reading, but when, okay. And then again, high level, under the water shortage contingency plan, where there's multiple ways of evaluating what stage we're in. And it uses the representative monitoring points. And if you go to, say, well, let's look at stage 3 that we're currently in. So that's on page 77 of 91.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, there's all these different things, but early management action trigger activated and unaddressed at any 7 of the representative monitoring points. It seems really high. I mean, how many RMPs do we have? I don't know if anyone had that. And then when we get to the other stages, like at, if we go up to stage 4 or 5, it's undesirable results at 15 of the, based on minimum threshold exceedances at 15 of the RMPs. And likewise, so that's on page 79. It just seems like those numbers are way high.
I think those are, just a quick comment. I think what I remember from the MGA is that these are basically similar, and I think those are the short-term ones, not the 5-year average ones that they're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so
Table 8.3 really summarizes the groundwater basin trigger conditions. That's on page 69.
right. Again, I just think that those are really high numbers for, for having those stages, that you would have to get up to those numbers to get to the higher stages. But it sounds like nobody else has that reaction.
No,
Well,
I had that.
I was worried about it
reaction.
initially.
Yeah. I mean, there's another issue about that we've been primarily focused on saltwater intrusion, correctly, of course, but I'm not sure that does our water barrier for seawater intrusion really add to our aquifer, and could we actually be, if we are, as I think we are, we're not in a 5-year driest period, that 5-year period that represents our dry period is now a normal. That's our normal period. Will that long-term effect have some impact on the actual groundwater, no matter how we prevent saltwater intrusion? I think there will be another issue coming up in our aquifer I think we should at least mention it in our water thing, that we understand that it is not only about preventing seawater intrusion, that we are protecting a precious water supply too. And then we need, we need to, our drawing, the rain is an indicator of how much we can expect, what's going to happen to our aquifer in 3 years. If there's 5 years of no rain, that means inevitably there'll be less water in our aquifer. So I don't know, this is a non-water engineer looking at this. I mean, and you can straighten me out, but I am concerned that those guideposts seem a little high to me also. That's all. I think we need to be more concerned about our groundwater than we even are.
I guess I'd like to see some rationale on how those numbers were chosen.
Yeah.
Shelley, let me jump in. Do you want to, I think we had discussion around this, so it's great that you bring it up, Director Jaffe. Did you want to talk, I thought some of the discussion with Cameron revolved around like, where are we at currently? What's that align with? That
Yeah,
sort of
I think, he basically baselined this with a stage 3 where we're at now, and said, how much worse would it really need to get for us to go into, a stage 4, which is a severe water supply shortage. And I think, knowing that Pure Water Soquel is, planning to come online in a couple years, that, I guess the link between rainfall and recharge is not like a quick or a short period. It's a long period, and there's, later impacts. So I think that's kind of where he was coming from. And
Well, maybe I'm just not aware of how many representative monitoring points have these conditions. Maybe I've got an overly optimistic sense of the current conditions of the basin. So rather than spend a lot of time on this, maybe Cameron could to show it at the current conditions where we have, we're exceeding these. Well, it says that any for 3. So I do know there's indications of seawater intrusion at some of our RMPs. But to go up to 10 for severe, it seems like a huge jump.
so you think it should be less?
I don't know. Cameron is the, I'm thinking super critical is not super critical. It's Armageddon with 20 RMPs having these problems.
Yeah, my concern is how I was worried that the GSP was affecting our own personal views on how our groundwater should be managed ourselves. And so that it seems like it. I remember Ron himself saying, well, once the water gets to seawater gets to a certain area, it threatens our main water supply. And that is the worst case scenario. I agree. And our injection wells will help forestall that indefinitely.
Yeah.
It almost is like it's in there because the bars for sustainability have been set carefully low enough so that we have a chance of achieving them. And I think if you talk to anyone who's been working on GSPs, even in other districts, they'll say that the bar does not, it's something that we should be able to achieve. And so that's what my worry is that those high numbers of RMPs have been set to be, artificially careful, I guess, or conservative or lenient. Lenient, not conservative.
I'd just like to see a comment. I mean, this comment addressed on how these numbers were chosen. Okay. And it could well be that my sense is wrong, but I'd like to, you know, to see what the logic was. As it is now, I can see from that table that's on the screen, you know, it goes up by 5. So that's a nice,
Yeah.
nice round number, or not round number, a nice increment, but is it defensible?
Well, maybe one of the ways we could handle this is, I know there'd been some expression of maybe bringing Cameron or Georgina in to discuss the 1-year submittal, or the annual report that we just submitted to the state, the GSP, the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. And he can talk about this, because I think part of the confusion may be around also, and I don't have a direct answer for you. I'm drawing on my memory banks, but these early management and trigger actions are different than the ones on the left. So we might not should be equating them exactly, you know, and Director Christensen was right too. And I think that's why these early activation things were put into the GSP at some of the expression that Soquel Creek specifically had, not just relying on the other thresholds. So if that, and I'll try, I have an email out to them, and they had agreed, Montgomery and Associates, on either date. And I think those were both the meetings in May. So that would be a chance to talk about this.
Yeah, it'd be good for those who didn't go to the MGA meeting to see that.
Right,
but
right.
If you could ask them specifically to address how these number of representation RMPs were chosen, what the logic is for it.
Okay. Shelley, I'll work with you on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm this was what, a month ago or something, and I'm having some trouble remembering all the details of it. It was back in March.
It's a lot. Believe me, Shelley, I can't even remember.
No, it's a great piece of work. It is really represents a lot of work. So
it does.
I didn't want to say anything to suggest that I didn't appreciate that at all.
And
I was concerned.
And I just wanted to add just that I was concerned initially when I saw this too, but I don't remember all the specifics, but I remember going, okay, well, that's just where we are now, and these are the shorter term things. So I felt a little more comfortable, you know, because we know we have several wells that are below protective levels, which puts us in a stage 3 for sure, on the longer term ones, but I can't remember what all the shorter term ones are. And that just has to be 2 quarterly samplings out of a year for those to be initiated. So, but I absolutely think having Cameron come and just make sure we're all clear on that would be great.
It appears that Director Daniels would like to say something. He's got his hand up.
He's muted though. Wow.
Yep. So I wanted to just raise a point about our current situation. If you remember, there was this graph that Cameron and so forth had produced about how much recharge we get corresponding to a certain amount of rainfall. It was an exponential number, and the average was about 31, which is what we've seen, you know, over the last decades. And when we got down to about 20 inches of rainfall, there was essentially zero recharge. This year, we're currently set about 50% down. That means we're way below zero recharge. So this year, there's not going to be anything going into the basin. And you think about going forward with this, if this is the new normal, the only water we would have would be the water out of pure water, which is only 1,500 acre feet. That's not the 2,300, 2,800, whatever. So we would probably be in a stage 5 or 6 if we were going forward with this year after year after year after year, and that's not impossible.
Well,
You know,
we have to
this mega drought could go on for decades, and so I think we need to think about the very worst case, and so, you know, that would probably bear on these. So I would agree that, you know, looking for 20 places where you're violating the BMPs, that may be a little harsh. We may have to be, you know, there much lower.
Well, also you have to keep in mind at the moment, Pure Water Soquel is not going into areas where we have production wells. It's going to create a barrier for the production wells. It's not going to go uphill to our wells that we pump from. So I don't know, I've read too much about how long-term this drought could actually be, and that this could be our new normal, like 20 inches. I think that's about what we have for this last rain period. It's very concerning.
Well, this year we're down about 16 or 17. You know, it's about half.
Yeah.
Instead of 31, we have 15 or 16 inches, and that's bad.
So this sounds like an excellent opportunity to bring in Cameron or Georgina to present kind of the state of the basin. That's one of the things I'm hearing be useful. And so we'll definitely do that. But Shelley, I mean, I'm trying to facilitate you getting the direction you need
I'm trying to
tonight.
think about how timing wise we get that feedback from Cameron relatively quickly so we can, incorporate any. I don't think there will be time to incorporate it before we get a final draft out for the public hearing. So it may be that, we continue working on it after the public hearing and whatever other input comes through, if you want us to make any changes to this.
So we could also do it next year too. So
We can revise this plan anytime. We also intend to revise it before Water Soquel comes online. So, that's a few years down the road.
Yeah, like a moving target to me. It's just.
It
Yeah.
is, you're absolutely correct, Rochelle. That is, it is a moving target, but that's why they're saying year after year we should check back on this, because it's fairly serious.
Yeah, I mean, the board has the right to change it, update the UMP anytime they want. It normally comes back 5-year intervals, but as Shelley said, that'll be a little different when Pure Water comes on. Some things will be updated.
The other thing to consider is, the full equation and what's going on the demand side. And we really haven't seen a big bounce back. We've seen a little bounce back. And so I think kind of, we're probably going to be getting a lot more drought messaging this year too from the state. And I know the city of Santa Cruz and some of the other local agencies are probably going to implement some sort of curtailment themselves. So I think the impact of that is going to keep demand low. So that's something else to kind of weigh and consider is, if we were seeing demand kind of shooting up pretty rapidly, then yeah, we may have more concern on the other side.
Kind of, I think my internet got a little twitchy there. Everybody was frozen. So,
No, we actually were frozen.
oh, okay. So the next step would be a motion, or is there anybody else that has something to share?
Oh,
any other feedback on anything else about the plan or?
I don't think there was anything we're changing with the plan, so it doesn't seem like we would need a motion to direct
To take no action or to.
staff. But
Yeah.
we did, but we do want to hear from Cameron, so I don't know if you want that as a motion, but.
No, I've got that written down. That's okay.
Okay.
yeah, I don't think we need a motion. I wouldn't say that. I'd say that we probably should agree that we will review this later after, even after, if we do it after we've adopted this plan, which I think we can, but I think we have some things that we need to check later.
And also we just need to see what happens with rainfall. I don't know if we can plan everything that well.
Well, no, last year's rain year is over, so that's at least.
Yeah.
So.
I know I was waiting for one more rain. April showers bring May flowers.
Saturday, Sunday and Monday, or Monday and Tuesday, one of those 2 days. It's supposed to drizzle a little bit.
Drizzle, that's not gonna fill up my rain barrels. Okay.
I did have a question, not that I want to create more work on reading, but if we're expecting us to read the entire plan and comment intelligently on it on the May 18th meeting, was it? It might be better to kind of break it up into pieces. If it, instead of the entire plan, if there's something that you want comment on in more detail.
So Shelley, what sections have we brought in front of the board? This is 7 and 8. What other section did you bring?
On the demand projections, but we haven't actually brought the write-up, but
Okay.
that should be pretty basic. Most of the other chapters are, description of the district, and if we could go back to that, maybe slide 3 or something, Becca, if possible.
One sec, I just got to bring it back up.
Okay.
And Director Jaffe, we certainly hear your shout out to try to give you as much time as possible, and certainly the board can direct us on this. One thing we might consider, and I know Shelley and Alyssa have just been working nonstop on this, but maybe on that board packet, Shelley, if we can get it out like a day early or something like that, something else to consider. It gives you a little bit more time.
Yeah, and we're trying to get the final draft out a couple weeks in advance so that we can make that available to the public earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
This is Alyssa. I was just going to say that we are scheduled to have the drafts completed and available for public review on May 4th. So that would allow you 2 weeks to take a look at it. So hopefully that helps.
That would help. Yeah,
and I
let us
think,
know when it's ready.
I think sections 1, 2, and 3 are just overview and pretty basic, and not really sections that you would need to spend a lot of time on. You've already seen the core of the demand projections, so you would just be really looking at kind of the whole write-up. Section 5 is the compliance with the SBX 7-7, the baseline, the 2020 baseline and the targets, and that's pretty cut and dry to comply with the regulatory requirements. So again, I don't think there would probably be a lot of need to, comment too much on that or study that too deeply. Supply, chapter 6 is really pretty related to 7 and 8. So a lot of those same concepts that, were discussed in section 7, you've already kind of read about and heard about. So, and then the final chapters, demand management measures, that's just basically a description of our conservation programs and what we do to control demand. So I think you'll be able to get through it pretty quickly, especially in 2 weeks, with just focusing on those core sections.
I think one thing that could help me, I've read 7 and 8 in great detail, and if I don't know what's changed, I would have to read them all over again. But if I have a change list, I could go in and just look at those little portions, or maybe they're not changed at all, and that would make it a lot easier. And similarly for the demand predictions that we looked at for 4. if I can see what's changed there, I'll have a better handle on what I need to do or not do.
Okay, we'll see if we can build that in, or
Maybe would a list be appropriate? I mean, not so much track changes because that might get messy, but here are
yeah,
the main items that, okay.
Yeah, that would work.
track changes as compared to like the 2015 app and the 20.
Shelley, I think he's just asking what would work if we could, if there's like, well, we changed the criteria or we changed this, not like
Sure.
words or anything, but
Kind of like a synopsis of each section about any major changes.
That'd be helpful.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
and I'd also offer that, Shelley and I are both, and of course, Alyssa too, are available if you have questions when you start reading it, because it's a hefty document. This document, when I first started, was about a ½ inch thick, maybe less. I dare to say what it is now. And, it seems to be a lot of legislative stuff gets added to this document each year. So it's become a real foundational document for guiding the district. So it's a serious thing.
Particularly since a lot of the stuff doesn't really apply to us or worry us.
yeah, and you have to follow, or it's better to follow their guidebook, and so that leads to some repetition and just, yeah, it doesn't read like a document if you were just gonna put it all out there without their guidebook and their set of requirements. So
Yeah, it's we've always said it can be a little torturous reading it for the exact reasons Shelley said, but it's even more torturous writing it because of those exact reasons. It's just much easier to adhere to the formula because they're looking to make sure we hit all those marks.
So you don't need any motions. I think it's pretty clear.
yeah, thank you for all of your input. And
It's easier.
Thank you for putting it together. Important document.
Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.
Good work, you and Alyssa.
Very much.
Yes.
Everybody
Excellent
else
work.
too, Ron and Melanie and Todd.
Yes.
I'm sure you're ready to move on to the next thing.
Kudos all over the place.
So the board will move on to the next agenda item, which is adjournment.
Nice.
So
Any
I
motion
will
for that?
adjourn the meeting unless there is something that I've
Good
missed.
night, all.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.